Karesh ran his fingers across the ancient data slate, its surface dimly glowing with the last recorded words of a doomed species. Humanity has fallen. Earth is no more. He leaned back in his floating chair, his twin hearts pulsing in sync with the flickering light. The Zalari Dominion had recorded thousands of wars, countless victories, and just as many exterminations. But humanity was different. Their war had been costly, too costly. Even 3 centuries later, there were whispers of unease whenever their name was mentioned. And yet, they were gone. Nothing but ash in the void. Karesh swiped through the records. The final battle had been decisive. Zalari warships had reduced Earth to ruin, its once thriving colonies left lifeless. Those who survived had fled into deep space, their vessels outdated and failing. There was no way they could have lasted more than a few decades. The Dominion had never needed to check. And yet, Karesh's eyes narrowed at the report before him. A merchant convoy near the fringes of Zalari space had been attacked. Normally, such incidents were dismissed: pirates, rogue warbands, desperate refugees. But the survivors spoke of something different. Ghosts, one of them had said. They came from nowhere. They didn't hail. They didn't speak. They just tore through us. The ship's wreckage was found days later. The damage suggested advanced weaponry, but the materials? They were old. Terran old. Karesh exhaled slowly. It was impossible. Humans were extinct. The Dominion had ensured it. And yet, somewhere in the void, something that should not exist was watching. And waiting. The transport ship shuddered as it exited slipspace, the stars snapping back into place like a shattered viewport reforming. Karesh steadied himself, his twin hearts hammering in his chest. He had been to the Dominion's core worlds, the glittering capitals of the Zalari Empire. He had stood on the bridge of warships that blotted out suns. But this place, this desolate backwater on the Empire's fringes, this place felt wrong. The planet below, designated D-457, was a worthless rock. No strategic value. No resources worth harvesting. The Dominion had abandoned it centuries ago. But if the reports were true, it was here that a Zalari patrol had been ambushed by something resembling humans. Karesh disembarked, stepping into the dust-choked air of the ramshackle settlement. The locals were a mix of species, exiles, criminals, scavengers. Beings who thrived in places the Dominion had forgotten. None met his gaze. They had seen what he had come looking for. And they feared it. He found the survivor in a dingy, dimly lit bar. The Zalari warrior was gaunt, his exoskeletal plates cracked from the battle. He clutched a glass of some putrid liquid, but his hands trembled too much to drink. They weren't human, the soldier whispered. Karesh's mandibles clicked in confusion. Explain. The survivor's breath hitched. They looked human. But they moved wrong, faster, stronger. They didn't hesitate. Didn't speak. His eyes darted to the shadows, as if afraid something was still watching. They weren't like the ones we fought before. These were better. Karesh suppressed a shiver. He had expected a war story, an exaggeration. But the terror in this warrior's voice was real. The historian hesitated before pulling out a small device. The Dominion found a distress beacon near the wreckage. He activated the hologram. It was broadcasting this. The audio crackled, ancient, distorted. And then, through the static, a voice. We are still here. Karesh's blood turned to ice. Humanity was extinct. The Dominion had made sure of it. Hadn't they? Karesh stood aboard the bridge of the Dominion scout ship Vorkai, watching the derelict station drift in the darkness. It was old, far older than it should have been. Scarred metal plates bore no insignia, no markings of ownership. But the shape, the structure, it was unmistakably human. His mandibles tightened. The Dominion had scoured the stars for centuries after humanity's fall. Not once had they found a single surviving ship, settlement, or signal. Humans had been thoroughly erased from history. And yet, here it was. The ship's captain, a grizzled warrior named Zalvin, crossed his arms. This structure shouldn't exist. His voice carried the disdain of all high-born Zalari. It's a trick. A trap. Karesh ignored him, focusing on the readings from their scanners. We are detecting power. Faint, but present. This station is not as dead as it appears. Zalvin scoffed. Then we will finish what should have been done long ago. He gestured to the crew. Prepare a boarding team. Minutes later, Koresh found himself stepping into the station's cold, silent corridors. The Dominion soldiers around him moved cautiously, plasma rifles raised. The air was stale, artificial gravity humming weakly beneath their feet. Then they found the first body. It was human, mostly. Its form was wrapped in a strange exosuit, bulkier than any known Terran design. The helmet's visor was cracked, revealing empty eye sockets. Not just hollow, scooped out. Koresh felt bile rise in his throat. "This is wrong," one of the soldiers muttered. "This is not how humans looked before." They pressed deeper into the station, the lights flickering as if struggling to stay alive. Strange symbols lined the walls, some old Terran script, others entirely unfamiliar. Koresh activated his translator. The words made no sense: evolve, transcend, reclaim. Then the shadows moved. A figure lunged from the darkness, inhumanly fast. A Dominion soldier screamed as it ripped his rifle away with impossible strength. The others opened fire, plasma bolts illuminating the corridor. The attacker barely flinched. Koresh's mind struggled to process what he was seeing. It looked human, except for the eyes, glowing with unnatural energy. Except for the way its limbs twisted too quickly, too fluidly. The creature was on them in seconds, snapping another soldier's neck before the others could react. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The creature turned to Koresh, tilting its head, as if recognizing him. Then, in a voice that should not exist, it spoke. "You thought we were gone." Koresh's breath hitched. The thing grinned. "We have been waiting." Koresh ran. The corridor behind him was filled with screams, short, sharp, and final. Dominion soldiers, trained for war, were being cut down like prey. His twin hearts pounded as he stumbled through the flickering lights, his mind reeling. This was impossible. This was impossible. The humans, if they could still be called that, moved with terrifying precision. They didn't hesitate, didn't speak beyond those haunting words. "We have been waiting." They were faster than Zalari warriors, stronger than the Dominion's finest. And they didn't die. Koresh had seen one riddled with plasma fire at point-blank range. It had kept coming. He rounded a corner, nearly slipping on a smear of dark blood, Zalari blood. A soldier twitched on the floor, mandibles slack. His armor had been peeled open like fruit. Koresh staggered against the wall, trying to steady his breath. "Think! Think!" A voice crackled in his earpiece. "Captain. We're being." The transmission dissolved into static, then a high-pitched, guttural screech. Then silence. His claws tightened around his communicator. "Zalvin? Anyone?" Nothing. A chill crawled up his spine. The Dominion had exterminated humanity. Wiped them from existence. It had taken years, but they had won. So how were the dead now hunting them? A shadow shifted ahead. Koresh froze. The figure stepped into the dim light, walking with eerie, unnatural control. A human, but not a human. Its armor was fused to its body, wires running beneath scarred flesh. Its eyes glowed faintly, no longer organic. Its hands flexed, metal glinting beneath the skin. Koresh took a step back. "What are you?" The thing smiled. "What you left behind." Then it lunged. Koresh barely had time to scream. Koresh awoke to silence. His body ached, his mind reeling from the images burned into his memory. His fellow Zalari torn apart, their weapons useless against the creatures that should not exist. He forced himself upright, realizing he was no longer in the station. The cold metal beneath him was different. A new ship. A different nightmare. He turned his head and froze. Through the viewport, the Dominion fleet hung in space. At least a dozen warships, their massive forms casting shadows over the stars. And in front of them, a fleet of unknown vessels, silent, black, human. Koresh's breath caught. This was no ragged remnant of a long-dead species. These ships were sleek, angular, predatory. They made no hails, sent no warnings. They simply existed where nothing human should. The door behind him slid open. He turned sharply, his twin hearts pounding as a figure entered. It was one of them, one of the creatures from the station. But this one was different. Its armor was pristine, its movements calm, controlled. The glowing eyes regarded him, not with anger, but with something worse, amusement. "You survived," the human mused, stepping closer. Its voice was smooth, untouched by emotion. Interesting. Karesh swallowed hard. The Dominion will come for me. The human tilted its head. The Dominion is already here. It gestured to the viewport. And now, they will learn what it feels like to be hunted. Karesh turned back to the glass. The human fleet had not moved. It had not fired. Yet the Dominion warships were falling apart. Silent explosions rippled through their hulls, tearing through shields as if they were paper. Zolari vessels, built for planetary extermination, were breaking apart without a single shot fired in return. Karesh watched in horror as one ship, the Ravager, listed to the side, its engines gutted by something inside its hull. His mandibles trembled. How? The human warrior leaned closer, whispering. We have had time to evolve. Karesh's breath hitched. He watched as the final Dominion warship tried to flee, its engines flaring, pushing it away from the slaughter. It did not make it far. A human ship, moving impossibly fast, cut across its path. A dark shape detached from its hull, vanishing into the warship's interior. Seconds later, the Dominion vessel ceased to exist. The battle was over. Karesh could not move, could not speak, could not breathe. The human beside him placed a metal hand on his shoulder. You thought we were gone. Its grip tightened. You were wrong. Karesh sat in the cold confines of his cell, staring blankly at the floor. The echoes of destruction still burned behind his eyes. The Dominion fleet, gone. Dozens of warships, their crews, their might, all erased in minutes. The humans hadn't fought a battle. They had executed an extermination. The cell door hissed open. The same human from before stepped inside, its eerie, glowing gaze fixed on him. Karesh forced himself to speak. Why? His voice was hoarse, his mind numb. Why now? The human studied him for a long moment before answering. Because we were not ready before. It took a slow step forward. And because we remember. Karesh's mandibles tightened. We wiped you out. You should not exist. A quiet chuckle. And yet, here we are. The human crouched down, leveling its gaze with his. Your Dominion believed in total war. In extermination. You burned our worlds, hunted our kind. And when we fled into the void, you never looked back. It tilted its head. But we did. Karesh shivered. You evolved. The human nodded. The weak ones died. The strong ones changed. We abandoned the limits of flesh. We rebuilt, adapted, became more than what we were. While you sat on your throne, fat with victory, we were preparing. Karesh's mind spun. For what? The human leaned in close. For this. A transmission suddenly blared through the ship's speakers. A Dominion distress signal. No, a warning. Entire planets were going dark. The Zolari homeworld was under siege. The message was desperate, filled with screams before it cut to static. Karesh's twin hearts seized in his chest. No. The human stood, watching his reaction. It spoke one last time, its voice devoid of hatred, devoid of rage. Simply a statement of fact. You thought we were extinct. Karesh's blood ran cold. Now you will be.